Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Arif Khan here with Islam Media, and welcome once again to our podcast. Our thing says Week 11 preview, but it's actually playoff preview what we're going to be doing today. So, without further ado, let me just welcome our panel here. So, first of all, Ahmad, assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
How are you doing?
Good, thanks. It's another week. Glad to be here. And yeah, I mean, it's the playoff preview, but it's also week 11 of the season. So
That's true.
potato.
Yeah. So today, we have a special guest, and everyone knows who this person is. So I'm not even going to bother introducing him. I'll just put him right up here.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. How are you?
Assalamu
Glad to
alaikum.
be here.
How are you?
Wa alaikum salam.
I know I said I wasn't going to introduce you, but just in case anybody doesn't know, this is Ahmed Ibrahim Habibi. He is our fearless leader and commissioner of our league. So welcome, Habibi.
Thank you. And I just want to send a shout out to all the work and all the hard work that you guys do. I don't think you guys get appreciated as much as you should, but I just want you guys to let you know that you are really putting a lot of work and effort, and nothing is the way it is today because of all the work that you guys are doing. So
thank you. It's a lot of people behind the scenes. So
yeah,
it's not just the people that show up on the podcast or in the interviews. We have over 10, 12 people working in the background. And it's not just these, right? There's even things as simple as just collecting, the stats after the games. That in and of itself is a huge thing. I know everyone is always dying to see how many goals and assists they got. Without the volunteers, that would not happen.
Yeah.
Huge team effort.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So without further ado, let's just get into this. So as always, our lineup is we're going to have a really quick review of last week. We're going to try to go a little bit quick on this one. And then, our usual post-game review, stars of the game, and One World Halal Player of the Week, as well as league announcements. And then we'll get into the playoff preview, which is also sponsored by Chef Salal. So the first game of last week was Iman versus Riddha. And in this one, Team Blue took a 5-2 victory over Team Orange. And this game actually had playoff implications because before the game started, Orange was on top of the division. And I think with this win, Blue took that.
Yeah, look, when the game first started, I thought that Iman was going to come out on top at the end of this one. They had a very strong start. Abdullah Patel had an amazing goal. I believe it was almost a break. My memory's a little cloudy, getting old and all that stuff. But I do remember he scored a really nice goal. And they went up 2-1, I believe, by the end of the first period. And Riddha was a little bit on their heels, but they stayed strong. Nadir Ahmed was strong in net for them. And I think it was just a matter of Iman running out of gas. And some of the guys like Khalil, who came over in the trade with Suburb, he finally had a decent game. Got on the scoreboard. I believe that was his first goal with Riddha. Otherwise, we were questioning whether that deal really made sense for Ali Wadi or it was another flop for him. But overall strong game for Riddha, and definitely a message to Iman that if they want to get ahead of Riddha in the first round of playoffs coming up this week, they really need to change their game and maybe have a few more guys come up.
Yeah, I mean, this win by Riddha really, if anything, helped themselves, but it also helped Yellow because the worst scenario for Yellow would have been that Orange keeps winning and they just secure the first place. It didn't happen. Habibi, do you think Orange has peaked a little too soon?
Well, I think Orange peaked at the right time, to be honest with you. With all the the stuff that they had going in terms of like people showing up and stuff like that. I think they really have to search from within in terms of finding other pieces to kind of step up, and I think they've done that. So if other, it's the same voice that you guys have been saying throughout the podcast throughout. It really is dependent on who shows up. They had to look from within in terms of the people that did show up, but once the playoffs start, if everyone shows up, they will be a team to be reckoned with for sure. Um, but did they peak at the right time? I think they did. Um, but again, playoffs is a totally different beast. So we don't know what will happen once once the playoffs actually get into play.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough.
And having those guys, I mean, they definitely turned their season around at the right time. To Habibi's point, because
Hmm.
it put them in a position to be able to at least make the playoffs. They got a top seed. No, wait, they didn't get a top seed in the playoffs, but they were on the cusp of that. And just seeing their attendance issues and the key guys who missed a lot of games, that I think it's an incredible feat to be where they are right now and have the performances they've had on that team. The one thing I'd like to call out just in this game, so you'll see that Alice Johan was first star, Usman Batar with 2 goals, was second star, and Rizwan was the third star. There were a few comments in terms of, well, how does Adil become first star when he's on the losing side of a 5-2 game? Look, the refs are the ones who watch the entire games. They watch all 4 games in detail throughout the night, so they pick the 3 stars of each game because they're most likely to be unbiased and really judge it based on the performance that they see. And they're watching each game closely. And at the end of the night, they're the ones who pick the first star of the night as well. So in the end, we've relinquished those duties and assigned them to the referees so that there's an unbiased opinion. No one in the league actually has any say in it, and we just take what the refs have. So that's the answer for people who have questions about how that happened, and that's how we go.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate that because Ahmed, you're absolutely right. I mean, the OC, we actually take that stance purposely because we've seen, situations in the past where, these types of awards were kind of, voted amongst the OC, and it really is the most fairest thing to do to have refs, and even specifically if we talk about the last game, I don't think I've seen that ref ever ref. So the fact that it was a ref that really doesn't know anyone, it really shows an impartial bias in terms of how this specific award is not award, but this sort of recognition is taken
Yeah.
from, and it just shows where it's coming from. It really is directly from the rest. So I just want to make sure that what you're saying, I echo, and it is true.
And look, there's always going to be questions or controversy around that. You even look at professional leagues and you say how someone won MVP over this other guy, or how someone got, this guy got a shutout, but he didn't get the first star.
Yeah.
It happens all the time, guys. And I think it's completely normal. It's healthy to have those conversations and also engage people and have those debates within groups.
Yeah.
And, this actually segues into a reminder. I was going to say this later in the podcast, but it segues well, which is tomorrow we have a special podcast about awards, not just the statistical awards, but also more subjective, right? Like the ones that the OC selects or the media team selects, etc. Guys, warning you now, there's probably going to be your favorite player might not be getting the award you want, but just trust us that we've put a lot of debate into it, and there's a lot of deserving participants. But unfortunately, certain awards can only go to one person. So, anyways, that's for tomorrow, and I believe Habibi, you'll be joining us for that as well.
I will, inshallah. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, all right. Let's move on to our next game of the night. This was again a same division match. Although it wouldn't have made much difference for Yakin, but points were on the line for Suburb. This ended up with a 5-2 win for Suburb. And before the game, we actually in our locker we said this is a playoff game. If we win this game, we potentially vault over blue and green and blue and orange. And when we actually play Yakin in the playoffs, we automatically have a 1-game win. So for us, it was a playoff game, literally, and that's how we approached it, and hence the 5-2 win.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the comments. It really is good to see Zaid Maju get that W, because at the end of the day, it really shows some players play better different formats, different systems, and it's good to see that once players find that groove, or once they find that team that makes them more comfortable, and we've seen that with even Ada Chohan, with Orange, and how he's blossomed to be the player that he's become. And to see Maju just on this chart right now, it actually makes me happy, just to see that he's getting the recognition that he deserves, because it might not be well on a certain team, but he might fit well better on another team. So it's good to see that, especially right now. I mean, Arif, to your point, this game for you guys was treated as a playoff game. So to have him step up during a quote unquote playoff game, it's really good to see him up there, and then to receive that recognition at this point in time is really good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and not on the 3 stars list here as well is Asim Patel. He had 2 goals in a very short period of time. I think within a couple of minutes of each, or maybe within like 30 or 40 seconds of each other, that really vaulted Suburb up to an early lead in the game. Almost got a hat trick at the end too, but at the same time, our very own Arif Khan also almost got a hat trick. So really strong performances from the guys who are meant to perform strongly for the team. And I think that's been one of the differences for Suburb, is that the guys who they've drafted, especially higher up in the draft, have performed like they were meant to, and can't say the same for everyone. And there are different reasons why that happens: injuries, chemistry, all that kind of stuff. But the guys who were taken in later rounds as well, who have really performed well as well. So you had Abdul Nafia before he was traded, who did really well. You have Faisal Mehboob, who did really well. So Khalil, when he was on the team, he contributed early when the GMs were unable to attend games. So it's been a very good season, especially for the GMs of this group. First time in the league, and having that kind of result, those kinds of results, I think is
Mhm.
very positive and should be commended.
Yeah. Let me talk about Yakin a little bit. Despite the score, I got to give them a lot of credit. There were certain sequences where they just hemmed us in. I remember 2 specific ones. In fact, one of them I was on the floor for it. Like literally 40 seconds, we were hemmed in. We could not get out. They were just all over the place, just throwing it around, and it wasn't even a power play, right? So you cannot discount Yakin. They have some amazing brothers there, very talented. They play well together, and when they click, it's very very hard to take the ball off of them. So it doesn't matter if they're last in the division or how we played against them in the season. Playoffs is different, and I would treat playing them no different than if we were playing green or orange or yellow or sorry or blue in any other day.
This is also the first game since the big trade they had with Suburb that Furkan and Wahaj didn't. I would say they probably didn't have a
Mhm.
significant impact on the game, or noticeable impact on the game. I think they were there. They were obviously playing, but they had contributed early on. So hopefully they're saving that for the playoffs.
Yeah. And continuing on, Faisal Mahboob also making some comments, and these recaps are actually sponsored by Mr. Faisal Mahboob, broker realtor. So thank
Yeah,
you, Faisal.
and I just like to comment, like we can see all the comments that are coming on the side, so it's a good thing that there's a lot of interaction. So I do encourage, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, just hop them on that, and maybe if we have the opportunity to answer some of those questions, maybe we'll do that
Yeah.
after.
But at the same time, keep it on topic. I know like there's been some questions about GM situation next
Yeah,
year and this and that. Great questions, definitely deserves an answer, but we got to keep things on
keep it.
track
Yeah,
here. But yeah, those are definitely questions that in the future we will entertain. Speaking of entertaining, Ikhlas Isan game. This ended in a 3-0 win for Ikhlas. What happened there?
Oh boy, another 3-0 loss for us. I think this is the third 3-0 loss in the last 4 games,
Hmm.
and we were very close to the 3-0 loss in the week 9 game. So not a great trend. We did have a few guys who did sit out. I mean, this game didn't have an impact on the standings for us. Full disclosure. So and it didn't for a class either. So
Yeah.
we had a few guys who had nagging injuries, and they decided that it'd be best to take the night off, and take a break and not risk further injury and be better prepared for the playoffs. So we were missing a few key guys. Guys like Hamza or Isawi that weren't there. The other thing that we it, lose track with all these comments coming in here. Thanks, ABP. What is it, Habibi? Oh, I guess it's not showing up on the screen. Not everyone can see it, but
We'll just continue on.
but credit again to Ikhlas. They had another solid game. They played a full 30 minutes. They rotated their lines. Everyone contributed. Their third line, I continue to be impressed by those guys. So it's Samad, Salman, and Zain. There you go, Zain. There you go. He's calling out Ali, his goalie for the Vesna. But those guys, when they're on, they can be relied upon, and it's clear that the team relies upon them to be able to inject a little energy, get something going, keep the ball out of their zone, maybe get it deep in the other zone. But they're defensively responsible, and they get the occasional scoring chance as well, and that's what you want from a third line. You see Saqib, he's playing a little bit higher up in the lineup now. Razi wasn't there last week, so he's getting his opportunities as well. Hopefully he can get on the score sheet. But and then the other comment on Isan is that there were a lot of rumors going around is that after Isan lost that game to Iman, did Yusuf follow through on his agreement with Jihad and retire from ball hockey forever? He did miss the next couple of games after that due to personal reasons, but he was here last week, and inshallah he'll be there during the playoffs. So he's back, and we had some chances, but we're hoping and planning for better against in the playoffs.
You know what? It's good to see Asim Qureshi, even in a loss, still be recognized as a 3-star, because he's been playing really well. I'm surprised the brother was not with this league from day one. He's been a breath of fresh air for everyone.
He's been solid. If I would not be, if he had played the entire season, I think he would have been right up there in the top goalie conversation. Because I think this is only maybe his third game or fourth game, including a shutout in his first game. Just unbelievable he's been, and so many comments from the Ikhlas team afterwards on how good he was. I mean, they peppered us with shots. If I just take a quick look here, 26-7 were the shots. I mean, that's crazy. And only 3 went in, and it wasn't.
They weren't easy shots either, right? These are cross crease one
They weren't
timers
from the outside. There were some difficult shots that he saved. He kept us in the game. We were only down 1-0 going into the second period, which we were actually very happy with, being short and also playing against a powerhouse like Ikhlas. So kudos to him.
I got to give a shout out to my man Saqib Kokar here. I know we always razz him for not scoring in this, but you know what? He's taken a very serious tone to this season. He's been working hard, and he's actually developed into a really good defensive forward. He's taking key faceoffs. So while his name doesn't show up on the score sheet, he's definitely making an impact for him. So kudos to him, and also to the folks on his team who have taken a hand in mentoring him as well.
He might not be showing up on the score sheet, but he's showing up in the penalty box. So.
Yeah, but I mean, to this game, I mean, the 7 shots on net is really what's puzzling me. You know what I mean? Like, with only 7 shots on net from Red, I mean, it really goes to show, like, where was your offense? You know what I mean? In terms of like Hassan's offense. I mean, if you guys are showing up, if Green is showing up with 27 shots, and you guys only having 7 shots on net, that speaks obviously to your offense as well at some point.
It speaks to missing some of our key guys who we rely on for that offense in that transition game. Again, no excuses. It is what it is, and those are the facts. But it definitely hurt us missing some of those key guys. I mean, we're missing guys from the first half of the second line's missing. It definitely has an impact.
For sure.
Now, one question before we move on to the next game. Earlier in the season, Green was dominating people with 6-7 goals per night, right? The last few weeks, the scores have been pretty close. Even though they've won, other teams seem to be keeping pace with them. Is Ikhlas sort of pacing themselves, or doing some load management here, or have other teams sort of got the drop on them now?
I think other teams have gotten the drop on them. I think all the work that we've been talking about in the podcast for the last few weeks, and it's not like no one's listening. I think everyone is listening, and all the hype that they have, all the accolades that they've been receiving in terms of just on the Stars itself, that they are the team to beat. I think teams step up when they know they're playing against a team that they need to step up to.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably an attribute to that as well.
Fair point.
Yeah, I agree, and I think maybe they're also adjusting their playing style a little bit, whereas a little bit more run and gun earlier, and now it's okay. Maybe we get ready for the playoffs. We know we can beat teams. Let's try and focus on the little things. And I know Sajid is huge on coaching the team and providing advice to the guys to be able to improve in key moments. So I think that it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. And you know what? You can't take away the fact that Razi's missing. He's a tremendous player. I know Green is a star-studded lineup, but even in a team like that, Razi makes a huge impact. Right, your first pick, and it balances his line. So yeah, missing him, they've still won, but I think some of that lack of production compared to what they were doing is due to the lack of Razi.
For sure. I mean, like you say, no slight to Sakib, but you basically go from having Razi on the first line, who's your first round pick, to Sakib, who's I don't remember, but maybe third or fourth round pick going in there. And look, Sakib plays really well, but he's not at the same level as Razi, so it makes a big difference for sure.
All right, let's move on to the next one. And the last game of the night, this was Taqwa versus Haya. And but Taqwa came away with a win. Habibi, talk to us.
Yeah, so I guess this is one of those things where I can actually finally say in person, trust the process, I guess. So
Words.
To your point, RF, you did mention that you did treat your team treated this game like a playoff game. I think we did the same. Even though the implications statistically didn't mean much, I think for us it was more or less making sure that we were ready and to have our best foot forward and to carry on that momentum onto the next game. To Haya's defense, they probably didn't have all their players, but for us it didn't really matter because for us it was more or less carrying a momentum onto the next game. Adil Patel did what he always does. Irfan EBP's goal in terms of getting that monkey off his back. It was a one-timer off the I think off the inside. I think that was a beautiful goal, beautiful shot, and it was really done at the right time. And I think hopefully if EBP can carry that momentum onto the playoffs, I honestly think that. And again, I'm biased. I think Black is really blossoming to where it needed to be at the right time. So if you follow our games during the last 3 games, we've either tied or won, which is a lot better than the 7 losses that we had in the very beginning of the season. But you can only go upward from there. So, with this specific game, it was a late game. We did have a couple of celebrations to actually move on forward. And I think the biggest one in this one was EBP's goal.
That was a beautiful goal.
Yeah, it was a beautiful goal. And it kind of gave him that confidence that I hope that he's able to, to bring onto the next game, because I know we need to I think we blossomed pretty much at the right time. To your point, even with Iman, like did they blossom at the right time? I think for us, this game was pretty much that statement game to say, we are here, we are ready, trust the process, and I think we will be a team to reckon with, inshallah.
Well, Abdullah Patel is saying black comeback season. Imad, is this the first signs of a huge playoff run to be for Taqwa?
Well, that's the plan.
Maybe, and maybe we can talk about that when we get to the preview for the playoffs.
Yeah.
But specifically for this game, going into it, we thought that it was going to be a battle. Both teams play a relatively similar style. Tough. They use their size, a strong forecheck to be able to capitalize on those chances and score.
Yeah.
And Taqwa obviously came out on top, 2-1. Adil Patel, he scored a nice goal too. The one thing maybe he's thinking about is that 2-0 he had. I believe it was with, who was it with, Habibi?
2-0. With who?
He had a 2-0 in the game in the second period, and he decided to. I think it
was me.
Was it with you? Yeah,
it was with me.
And I was like, what is this guy doing? Like,
it was with me.
Why didn't he pass? Like, he got so close, and then he eventually just took the shot.
Yeah, it was with me. Yeah.
But at least I think that was before EBP scored the second goal. So he's probably quite relieved that Irfan did. But they came out hard. Haya was a little bit short benched, but that's still no excuse. Hamoudi scored a goal.
New father, by the way.
As a new father, yeah. so it's good to see that he's still able to come out and be a force on his team, despite the maybe possible sleepless nights. But it's going to be interesting for the playoffs. I think for both these teams, they're probably built for the playoffs, and they're going to give whoever they play a bit of a challenge.
And if
And a big shout out to Mo Mundra as well.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. If I could just say
Just going
anyone
to give
in
you
our
the floor
team,
for that. Yeah.
it's Mohamed Mandra. I mean, if there's any player that's blossomed in our team, and if there's any a player that that fit well, because of a trade, I think Mohamed Mandra brings that playoff intensity to our team, and he will be actually a person that we will be leaning on, and a great guy in the locker room, positive guy, provides positive feedback. And more importantly, the stuff that he does on the court in terms of the forecheck, the hustle, the running, the intensity, because we feed off that. Do you know what I mean? So I think, having him blossomed and having him getting adjusted to our style
Yeah.
in terms of at the right time, I think helped us in this specific game. And when we talk about the playoffs in terms of what to look forward to in Taqwa's game, that will definitely be something that will be looked at, to be leaned on, and to feed off of once we get into that next phase.
The guy's a machine. That's all I got to say.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that trade helped both Orange and Black, right? They both got what they needed. And speaking of exceptional defensemen, here's another one. Yusuf Ahmed, One World Halal Player of the Week once again. 3 assists.
What can you say? The guy is unreal. He was a pick early on. He'd never played in our league before. A lot of guys obviously knew who he was before, but he's just continued to impress every single week. We talked about how he's dealing with injuries and things like that, but just a force. If you're not paying attention to him when he's out there, which is a lot, you're going to pay for it.
Well, we'll be paying attention to him on Friday, so.
Yeah, and of course he gets a nice reward from One World Halal, and he'll be able to pick that up on tomorrow. Friday night from Habib.
The ironic part is he beat up on the guy from One World Halal to get this.
Yeah, that's right. At least he didn't score on him. He just had assists, right? It could have been worse.
He beat up in proxy. How about that? All right. So what do we got here? We have our, let's do it this way. It'll be easier. Some league announcements. So I'll let the OC take over here.
Yeah, so quickly, not a lot of changes right here. The hangar's still going to be checking for QR codes at the entrance. Please make sure to fill out your COVID-19 self-assessment before 3 p.m. on Friday, because without that, you won't be able to enter or play. A couple notes just about the playoff format. Well, maybe I'll just skip to the last note first. So with Winter 2022, we're very happy with the interest and the turnout that we've had for registration. Of course, if you haven't submitted payment, please do so and submit your EMT. The details are in the launch email, or you can go to our social media channels to find out exactly where you have to send that. But just keep in mind that your spot is not confirmed until you have both completed the registration form and the payment. So just the registration form isn't enough. So please do that as soon as possible. The other thing is with GMs going into the new season, we are still looking for a few GMs. Someone earlier in the chat asked about what the format's going to be. And as we had shared, it's how we shared last week, they are going to be pairs. So if you're interested in joining, registering as a general manager for next season, whether or not you have a partner, please speak with Isawi or contact someone on the OC, and we'll get you in touch with the right individual. And if you don't have a partner, we'll try and connect you with someone that would be amenable to both of you. So please do reach out to us.
Sounds good.
And if I may, there has been a lot of questions that's been brought to my attention in terms of visitors, and in terms of the allowance of that. So I just want to let you guys know that I am in contact with the hangar in terms of what that answer will be. And the moment I get an answer, because I know that there's been a lot of interest, because we're sort of in playoff format, families do want to come out, and we do encourage that, and we do want to have that welcoming family environment where we do have that available to us. So I will find out within the next 24 hours, and then Ahmad, once we find out what the formal answer for that be, I'll communicate that to the GMs, and maybe we can send out a league announcement as well.
For sure.
Awesome. All right, so let's move on. Sorry, what was there any other announcements I missed, Iman?
Yeah, just talking about the playoff format.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So we mentioned a few times before, but just as a reminder, everyone or someone who's tuning in for the first time, hopefully not. But the advantage to the regular season, everyone makes the playoffs, but the top 2 seeds in every division, they go into the first round with a 1-0 series lead. So it's a 2-game series. So that means if you're one of the top 2 seeds, so that's Ikhlas and Haya, and then there's Riddha and suburb. You are going to be going in with a 1-0 lead, and all you need to do is come out with at least a tie in that first game on Friday night, and that guarantees you advancement to the semifinals. Now, if you're the lower seed, the thing is you're going into a down 1-0 in the series. So what that means is you're going to have to win that game, and then if you win it, a tie isn't sufficient. It has to be a win. If we go into a Habibi, is it a 5-minute overtime? 5-minute overtime, golden goal. So once you win the first game, you have to win again in overtime. If you lose in overtime, you're knocked out. If overtime ends in a tie, it goes to a shootout. And in the shootout, you have to win. So you really have to come out with 2 wins in the regular game time of 30 minutes, and then either in overtime or the shootout. If you don't miss one of those, then you're out. So you're really behind the 8 ball if you're the lower seed, and you're really going to have to bring your A+++ game to be able to advance.
Question from Abdullah Patel: does the advantage carry on into the semis?
It does not. So in the semis, it's going to be a best of 2 series. Everyone starts with a 0-0 slate, and you're going to play 2 games to see who comes out on top.
Cool. Well, anyways, it's too late to make to go for that advantage. The the standings have been set, but still good to know what you're fighting for and how much you have to fight. All right. So on to our next thing, which is now looking at playoff. Just we're gonna go through the playoff series here, sponsored by Chef Halal. And the first game for series is actually Ikhlas versus Taqwa. So green versus black. So Habibi, ready?
Yeah, I think just just carrying on over to the last conversation I had about the game number 11. I mean, what we did for that last game was to build as much confidence as we can, and then carry it on over to the next game. We as a team understand, what the implications are in terms of like what we need to do. I think we've peaked at the right time. I think if we have all our players showing up, which I believe that we do, so I know all our GMs are excited, and I know Mohamed Manja will definitely be a key point to this as well. Having EVP blossom when he did, having all our players gel when they can, or sorry when they have, will help us carry on. Yes, we are going down, based on the player format, and we do know we're facing a team like Ikhlas. I mean, there's no question about what Ikhlas has done throughout the whole season, and there's no question that they'll be extremely more than prepared in terms of taking us on the first round. And I know they won't be taking us lightly. We understand that, and we know that they'll be coming out guns a blazing, and their intensity will be probably morefold. But I'm a firm believer that every team has a weakness. We just have to rely on our GMs in terms of identifying what that weakness is and just playing according to their guidance, because all teams have a weakness, and it's just basically identifying what that weakness is and really executing our plan from the very beginning. I think if we stick to our game plan, I think we should be okay.
So let me ask you, how are you going to deal with this guy?
Well, we're just well, I mean,
Two extra knuckle every night.
Well, I'll be honest with you. Like, I'm not really going to diverge in terms of what our plan is, because again, like every team does have a weakness. Every team does have a weakness. That, I mean, we already know what their strengths are, and we do know it's very evident what their strengths are. It's just really capitalizing on what their weakness is, and just really pounding on the weakness when the timing is right. So. Yeah, I mean, and they're looking at the same thing for us. I'm sure that they're looking at our team and capitalizing on our weaknesses and just finding that right time when to do it. They are going in with a 1 lead advantage, so I hope that doesn't get maybe to their head in terms of like having that overconfidence. But
Yeah.
sometimes a team that's already down will probably not will probably will definitely come out stronger because they know the
Nothing to
implications that it
lose.
has.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a I don't have that what do you got to lose attitude from the onset. So I think
Yeah.
having that mindset for us is probably a good thing from that perspective. So if we just carry that mindset from the very beginning, I honestly think we should be okay.
Hmm.
So this game, Ikhlas and Taqwa met obviously as their divisional rivals. They met twice during the regular season. Once
Correct.
fairly early on when Taqwa was really having attendance issues and struggling, and then once 2 weeks ago, second last game of the season. And both ended up in a 3-1 win for Ikhlas. Now, if you compare those two Taqwa teams, they're two very different Taqwa teams. Yet they were still able to hold them just to 3 goals, and they were able to get a goal in by themselves. Um, I think Taqwa did a very good job starting off week 9 against Ikhlas. It looked like they had a game plan and they were executing, and at some point that just fell apart. Now I'm not on either team, so I can uh, probably guess around what the strategy might be on Taqwa's side. It is really to contain and keep those shots to the outside, use their body, use their size to be able to limit those shots, keep them to the outside, keep them away from the middle. Hamza does his curl from the boards and comes down through the middle.
Hashtag spin move, as EVP just mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know what these guys are going to do, and Taqwa has the capability to be able to lock them down. Now, the key is to be consistent for the entire game, to be able to do that for the entire. Yeah, I mean, Yusuf Ahmed too, it's a spin move too. Uh, there's so many guys who have these moves, and they're fast and agile. So that's going to be the key to Taqwa. Yasser Hussein is going to have a key game. Stop those first shots, and I think the Taqwa defense, we build them as a very strong defensive team from the get-go before the season started as they were drafted, and that their team is going to have to come through. Now,
Yeah.
when it comes to class, it's just keeping up with their game plan, rotating the lines, getting contributions from everyone, and just being who they are. I mean, you have your top guys, Yusuf Ahmed, you have Sajid, you have Sherry, you have everyone contributing on that team. And as long as those guys continue to be who they are, I think Ikhlas can come out on top. But the big but is what I talked about with Taqwa. They have to continue to be who they are to be able to be successful. And if they're not, they even have a small lapse in play. Ikhlas is going to capitalize on that, and they're going to regret it.
The scary thing is, even if you get through all that, you still have to deal with Ali Khawaja.
I was going to mention that same thing
All
too.
right. And Habibi,
Very
you
nice.
played with him on Salam Cup teams as well. Talk to me about Ali Khawaja.
Well, Ali Khwaja, I mean, it's, and I've heard this throughout the podcast before. I do know Ali Khwaja very well, and I'm surprised that he didn't get as much recognition as he does that he should have got. Ali Khwaja is an extremely good goalie, in my opinion, and he didn't get all the recognition throughout, and I don't know why, but I've played with Ali, like in Salam Cup. I played with him, in Islam. I don't think I played with him in OBHA, but he's a great goalie. There's no question about it. So yes, he is. As I mentioned before, he is definitely one of their strengths. But again, I'm going to allude to weaknesses. So it's not we're more than we do know what their strengths are. It's just
Yeah.
identifying what those weaknesses are and just capitalizing on that. But to the point of strengths, yes, Ali Khwaja is definitely a strength on that team. There's no question about it. Just the experience that he has. I mean, he has playoff experience. He has
Yeah.
championship experience. He has, that veteran experience in terms of like games were on the line. I played with him, when we literally on championship cup teams. I won a cup with him. So I mean, he's definitely a force to reckon with. There's no question about that. So
Absolutely. No,
yeah,
it's going to be a tough game. So I'm not even going to ask the predictions from you, Habibi, because I know who you're going to say.
I know what I'm going to say.
And Imad, I think you've already said the class, so we'll see. So the predictions are split there.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm looking. Sorry, just one thing. I'm looking for strong performances from some of the guys on Taqwa. And we're talking about Sahil. You're talking about Amr Khwaja, who are going to be solid. Umar Baksh, and just use their size and their physicality to be able to limit them.
yeah, for sure. Second game of the night, and this is the other series that's going to be at least interesting for me because I'm in it, is Suburb versus Jaquin. So we've already seen a preview last week where we played Jaquin, and the game, even though it was a 5-2 win, like I mentioned, Jaquin had their moments. Now the question is, if they can string together more of those moments, they're going to make a series out of this one.
Consistency. That's the one word I have for Joaquin, whether that's within a game or during the season, and they've lacked that.
Mhm.
I think more than any other team in the league this season. So they really need to get it together. Hopefully, they've had some attendance issues in the past as well. And I know we keep talking about attendance issues, but if you're missing your key guys, you're missing your key guys. You're missing your bench. You're missing your bench, and that's very difficult to be successful when you don't have that. The top guys have struggled, and what we've noticed, I think Isawi's spoken to this before, is if they get down early, their top guys are very, very offensively talented, and they start taking a lot of risks. And what can result from that is goals against or chances going the other way. And with a team against Suburb like that, who has speed, who has a lot of talent on their roster throughout the lineup, uh, you're playing with fire. So it's going to be very important that even if they do fall behind early, they need to be sound defensively. Well, yeah, there you go. The Mehboob versus Mehboob rivalry. We'll see who comes out on top. Hopefully, they both show up this week.
It's a Mahbub that will come on top.
Yeah, right. Jeez, there's a one prediction you make.
Yeah.
But Zed Maju is going to be key. He's stood tall. He's played very well and gelled with the Suburb team. At the same time, Badger, we know what he's capable of as well. He's had some off games, but I think that's more of a result of what I just talked about with the team being more risky on the offensive zone.
Yeah.
So, wow, I think this is going to be an interesting game. It could very well be a very high scoring game. But yeah, and the key for Suburb as well will have that balance and contributions from throughout the lineup.
And I think the key for Joaquin too is really what we talked about earlier too, is when players show up. If they have all their players showing up, I know Arsalan's on that team too. Because RC is so it's sorry, it's not Arsalan. What's is it Arsalan?
Arsal Shabuddin.
Arsalan Shabuddin, yeah. So if he's there, because he brings that leadership and that sound voice in terms of carrying that team and bringing them to where they need to be and settling down. Settling them down. So I think if they have all the right players there and all the players show up, it will be something that Suburb will need to take note of.
Now, that can be said for Suburb as well, because if I'm not mistaken, last Friday, Yakin did have all their players. I don't think they were missing anyone. I could be wrong, but like I said, they have their moments when they are extremely dominant, very hard to play against. And if Badger gets hot, it's going to be very difficult to get shots past him. I think for Suburb, the key is just to keep playing the way we have been, where everyone shows up, we roll our lines. Um, you know, it's a treat to see some of our GMs when they get on the floor, the five of them, including Husley. It's just fun to watch them go. They're just, as a hockey fan, I'm on the bench. I'm like, wow, this is I got the best seats in the house to watch this.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, the pieces that Suburb has been able to put together, even with the acquisitions of the recent players and the way they formulated to the team in terms of making them, how they are today and peaking at the right time. Even as for myself too, even watching them play, it is a treat to watch as well. So again, and the comment still stands for both teams. It really boils down to making sure that all players show up, and all players just really, do what they need to do and just stick to their game plan from the very beginning.
So predictions from each of you.
Sorry, go ahead, Habibi.
Well, I mean, I'm impartial, so I'm not really going to make any predictions, but I think Suburb, if they stick to the way they've been playing, and what they've shown in the last couple of weeks, I think Suburb can do this in terms of like taking it to the next step. And I do know that they have the 1-game lead, so that's obviously an advantage to them for them. So it would be a tough battle for Joaquin, but not to say that Joaquin cannot do it either.
I'm going to have to go with Suburb for this series, just because of the inconsistencies that we've seen with Joaquin. The top guys on Joaquin really need to perform. On Suburb, we've seen that Junaid has done a great job coming over after the trade. Very strong player. Arif Bijabai seems to have been playing better than he was on Taqwa, maybe not to the level that everyone expected him to be at the beginning of the season, but he chips in. and he's a force now on suburb. The one thing that I will mention is suburb should be careful with the penalties going into this game. They took 4 penalties in the last game against them, and with guys like Kazi, Umandra, Huzaifa, Panchbaya, you don't want to be down a man and let those guys down. Kudos to the penalty killers on suburb, but you're playing with fire at that point. And Bilal Hafiz taking a double minor towards the end of the game as well. He needs to be a little bit more careful. So yeah, suburb for me.
All right. Third match of the night. This series is between Iman and Riddha. Again, we saw a preview on Friday, Orange versus Blue. I think Blue seemed very confident in not only in their team, but they were also confident in their assessment that Iman had peaked earlier, and now it's all downhill for them. So those are some fighting words from Riddha. I know we don't have any Riddha representatives on this podcast. We would have had one at least, usually. But what are your thoughts on that comment by Riddha?
Well, who has the 1 game advantage? First of all, I guess I think that's probably an important fact. I think it's Riddha, right?
I believe so. Sorry, you should know this. No, I believe it is Iman who does. Don't quote me on that. I think Iman does. So don't they? No, I thought Riddha did.
Well, I mean, whoever. I mean, I think that's
Iman has.
Yeah, so Iman. So thank you. So I think that because I believe that both teams are even, in my opinion. I think they're both evenly strength. I don't think that Iman peaked at the right time. I think, well, actually, no, I do think they peaked at the right time, and especially with the acquisition of Adil, it definitely made them, a better team to where they are now. So, but not to take away from Riddha. Riddha has, they're a veteran team. But more importantly, those kids, I mean, the young guys that they have on Riddha, they have a very good chemistry, and watching them play in terms of where the future of ball hockey, Islamic ball hockey is going through, I really like the way they play. And I think that would be a force to reckon with in terms of like what they provide and what they will provide for this series as well. So I honestly think these two teams are very evenly matched in terms of like what I see on paper. And I think probably the 1 game advantage in this one will probably be, where I might lean towards.
So, look, Habibi, I agree with you. Very evenly matched teams, I think, particularly if we have all the Iman GMs show up this week. And I know we've talked about them in the past, but they've been this successful thus far with limited attendance from the GMs. So if you have Jihad and Yusuf Soliman come out, and if Osama Soliman stays out of the box, you're going to have a very tough team to play against. And Riddha being down 1-0 in the series, it's going to be a challenge. The guys on Iman, we've talked about them throughout the season, have really stepped up. You have Ahmed Khalid, who had a really strong start to the season.
Yeah, you can't take away from those young guys that you man, like Tayyip Kaler, Mr. Ahmed, like those guys. Yeah,
Coco. I mean, I know he's not one of the young guys, but he's always someone who you can rely on and who should always go higher in the draft than where he's picked. He always performs way higher than where he's drafted. Yeah. So it's going to be tough. Hopefully, RC's coming off injury. He played last week. He didn't seem like he was back to 100%. Didn't seem like himself. So hopefully he's back and feeling better this week because he'll be key to the game and for Riddha to be successful. And
you guys are funny.
It's good. I like it. I like
this jab between Hamza and RC. He's like, they have an advantage. RC's like, I am the advantage.
We're trying to keep a straight face here. That's a good thing.
And the other thing, I see Wasim Wauda, who's making a lot of comments in the chat. I'd like to see him have a big game. And it really matters. This is when his team really needs him. He had a very, very strong start to the season. I know he scored a goal last week, but he's been largely invisible since game 3 of the season. And I'm just saying from the score sheet, he does a lot of stuff around the floor. But with a high-end pick like that, you really need him to score, especially in moments like this. So, Wasim, I'd like to see your comments now about being called out. Hopefully you have a big game. But yeah, the young guys, Wasim's one of those guys. It's going to be interesting. Now, if you look at the goalies, you have Khalid Mufti, who's had a couple of really strong games. Maybe not last week, but I think that was an overall team game. You can't put that loss on Khalid at all. He won Player of the Week a couple of weeks ago. it's going to be key for him, and it's going to be difficult for Riddha to be able to get those goals on them if Iman's playing the way they want to. Nadir Ahmed, new to the league, first time in the playoffs. Hopefully, he can have a really good game for Riddha as well. They'll be counting on him, especially with all those guys we talked about on Iman coming in and scoring, particularly if you have some of their big guns come out. So I think this is going to be probably a high-scoring game, either very close or lopsided. Who knows? But there are going to be a lot of goals scored. So I think this is going to be a fun game to watch. I'm kind of disappointed that we're playing right after this because I'm going to miss the end of this game or the second half of it. But it's going to be a game, and I don't even know if I can pick a winner out of this game. I'll probably go with Iman just because they have the 1-0 lead going into the series. But it's going to be a good game to watch for sure.
I agree. It definitely will be.
I wonder if Wasim used up all his goals in those first few games. Mr. Valda, what's going on? You got to get one here.
Well, he said we called him out, so he got us. So we'll see what he comes up with on Friday night. Riddha chat, guys, start razzing him on and see what he can do.
Well, Wasim always, even in today's chat here, he's ripping on the suburb GMs, but suburb GMs score, my friend.
Well, I guess he has more goals combined than all of the suburb GMs, so there's that too.
It all boils down to the playoffs. So I mean, let's regular season is regular season, playoffs is playoffs, and hopefully we can bring that intensity into the playoffs. But obviously keeping it as safe as possible as well.
So this is going to be a fun series to watch. It was in my mind the game of the week last week, and I think it'll be again this week as well.
And he has some cousins going against each other too. They had a few interesting conversations last week during the game when they played against each other. And so the Galaires are going to have a lot of discussion this going into the game and probably after too.
I have more goals than suburb games in game 2. All right, last game of the night will be, inshallah, Haya versus Isan, Gray versus Red.
Wow. Okay, I'm playing in this game, so it's going to be a tough game. We played them first game of the season or second game early on in the season, had a tough 1-0 loss to them. I think a goal scored within the last 30 seconds, and it was kind of like a fluke goal after the goalie got injured. Very tightly contested. And then we played them a couple weeks ago where we were very shorthanded and just had a bad game against them. We really need to come out hard. Isan has been successful with a full lineup or as close to a full lineup as possible.
Yeah.
So that is going to be key to our game. Of course, when we're short heading into the game, I think a lot of us actually go in with the mindset that it's already a losing battle. And it showed in 2 weeks ago when we played Haya. They just got on top of us within the first 10 minutes, and there was no way for us to recover after that. We lost again. It was a 1-goal game, but I'd say after the first 10 minutes, we really controlled the game after that.
Yeah.
So it's a positive mindset, coming in early, being prepared for the game, and just playing our game. And everyone knows what that game is. I'm not going to talk about it. But at the same time, Haya, they have those guys. We talked about how they played against Taqwa last week. Iman has played amazing after moving. He's a different person after moving to defense. And not to say that he's playing defensively, but he's also scoring and creating opportunities in the offensive zone, which I would probably say he wasn't as much as a forward, which is an interesting dynamic. But regardless, it's working for them, and I think they'll probably stick to that. So they're there you go. Haya hustle. They're built for the playoffs. They're built for these close games. A lot of their guys have been very successful in Iceland playoffs. So I imagine that they're going to try and continue that. But Isan is definitely going to have something to say about that, even though they are going in with being down 1-0 in the series.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I'm a firm believer that every game starts not when the ball draws, but actually in the locker room. The game really starts in the locker room. It really starts, prepping, beforehand, making sure that all the guys are on the same page, making sure all the guys are on time. I think that's very important in terms of making sure that happens. I think for this game, again, it's a really fair game. It's a really fair, balanced game between the two teams. It really will be a hard one to pick because, we've been talking about the Haya hustle all season, and again, we did play them on Friday, but they were really missing a lot of key guys. They were missing, a couple of GMs. They were missing Naeem Akhtar. They were missing, I think, Dr. Someone
Salman.
Khalid. Yeah, so they were missing, a couple of key guys, which
Yeah.
it does have a factor. But again, if those guys can, come prepared with that high, hustle mentality in terms of what we know them, and what we expect them to be.
Yeah.
I think for Hassan it would be a tough battle for them to go, but at the same time, the same logic applies to Hassan. Like if Hassan, could show up on time, have that that mentality done, in the locker room, having them all on the same mindset in terms of making sure that they're prepared beforehand. Um, it can be definitely a fun game to watch. And again, we can't
Yeah.
speak enough about Ahmed Qureshi. Um,
Awesome.
Sorry, awesome Croatia in terms of like what he's been done in that too. So I mean, you got two evenly matched games here, or sort of two evenly teams that are matched, and it really boils down to, in my opinion, I think preparation in
Yeah.
terms of like making sure that the guys are
And we
prepared
haven't
before
we
they
haven't
walk
really
on.
seen Haya with the new look Haya, I should say, in complete form, right? There's always been GMs missing. There's always been players missing. So I know we sound like a broken record, but it comes down to attendance. But then once you actually have the attendance, can they actually show up to the game, right? Are they really in the game itself? So yeah, this is going to be a really interesting one, both for both teams. I think attendance, and then really who wants it more.
Habibi brought up a good point in terms of the goaltending matchup here. You have Asim, who's playing the league for the first time, and he's had a really good start to the league, and guys are taking notice. First playoff game in the league for him. So I think Isan, of course, is expecting a big game from him, and I think he's expecting a big game from himself. At the same time, Yusuf Kapoor has been here before. He's won championships. He's led teams to championships. Maybe just one, actually. I can't recall off the top of my head, but he knows what it takes. So he needs to have a strong game, especially if the top guns are coming out for Isan, because when they're clicking, they can score. And we've seen that in the past. So it's going to be an interesting game.
Yep, for sure. All right, gentlemen. With that, I think we've come to the end of our show. Thank you so much, Imad and Habibi, for joining, and also thank you to a very a rowdy group in the chat. We always have fun when everyone kind of speaks up. So, looking forward to this Friday. And till then, any last thoughts, Imad and Habibi?
Yeah, remember, there's another podcast tomorrow night, 10 p.m. It's the awards podcast. So if you're, with a lot of this, the stat-based awards, we know who's won those, and you can go on the website and see who's won if you can't wait till tomorrow night. But there are a lot of other ones that have been voted on by either your fellow GMs, the OC, or the media team. So to find out who those winners are, please tune in 10 p.m. tomorrow. Same YouTube channel. You know what the deal is. We'll post the links on all our socials. And the other piece is that the awards will be given out on Friday night before each game. So again, come before the game so you can get your awards. And inshallah, we'll see you soon.
Yeah, and if you don't come to pick up your trophies, we're sending an ultimate Dani.
Yeah, I'm
We
sure.
know
I'm sure.
he's desperate for those. So
It's all good. All right, gentlemen. With that, I bid you a good evening, and inshallah, till next time. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
take care. Thank you.